Okay, we're at 7:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, I want to thank everyone for I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Um, this is your 2026 Southwest District Fisheries Informational Meeting. My name is Sean Ferrier. I'm your Southwest District Supervisor based out of the North Platte office here. I want to thank Commissioner Mossman and everybody else that is able to attend today. We have about 30 minutes of information prepared for you, and then we're going to be able to answer all of your questions towards the end of the meeting. Uh, Please be utilizing that chat box that you see there at the bottom as we go through this, as your questions come up. If for some reason we aren't able to answer all of the questions tonight, we'll be reaching out to you within the next coming days to get your questions answered. The recordings from these meetings will be posted on um, our Nebraska Game and Parks Fisheries YouTube page. So be watching for those. If you know somebody that wasn't able to attend tonight, please point them to that, and they'll be able to get all the information that you hear here in the presentation. So jumping right into this, if I can get her to work. There we go. So new in 2026, we're going to do this Ask a Biologist program. We want to tack on to some of our youth fishing programs that we already have. I encourage folks to come out and talk to us biologists while we're out at those places, and just be another way for you to contact us and talk fishing. We've selected the Lake Maloney Carporama. That's going to be July 25th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you haven't attended a Carporama before, we chum the water for carp for for the week before that to increase our success rates, and then we'll have all kinds of booths and everything. It's a very family friendly event, so I encourage you to come out. We'll feed you some carp and talk fishing with you, and hopefully be something that everybody can enjoy. So just a quick general outline of what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'll give you a general district overview and a McConaughey update. And then we'll have our district biologist, Jared Lawrenson, talk about some aquatic habitat and access projects. And Logan Dietrich will do our area fishing forecast towards the end before we start answering questions. So jumping right into this, many of you probably remember in 2024, we had some district realignment where we split the Southwest District into the Southwest and South Central. Created a full-time position. The district supervisor position that I now hold in North Platte was created at that time, giving us an extra body within the Southwest District and allowing both territories to be covered a little better with some extra personnel. We did have some changes again in 2025. Daryl Eichner retired towards the end of the year. I wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that Daryl saw throughout his career. He was originally hired August 27th of 1973. So, and then he served 52 years when he retired. So a good highlight is what McConaughey looked like when he started, when he finished. So when he started, McConaughey was only 32 years old. We stocked 6,600 northern pike, 107,000 striped bass, and a little over 1,000 rainbow trout in McConaughey that year. Fast forward 52 years, in 2025, we stocked 21.5 walleyes and 31,000 wipers. So it's kind of amazing to see, the changes that Daryl witnessed throughout his career within Game and Parks and the stocking strategies and just how these waters were behaving. He's still going to be out in the Ogallala area. So for anybody that lives out there, if you see Daryl around town, make sure you congratulate him on a job well done. A heck of a career out of Daryl. So after Daryl retired, we had some discussions on what made the most sense to do with his position out there in Ogallala, where we added a position in North Platte just the year previous. We made the decision that it would make the most sense to move that position to Valentine and split the Northwest District into two districts. So we're back to a 6-district fisheries division with the North Central and Northwest District up there. We'll have 2 full-time management people based out of the Valentine office now, which was going to really help them out with some projects that they have coming online that I'll talk about here in a little while. One thing I did want to mention about with this new district realignment too, we're going to cover that Ogallala office with our staff out of the North Platte office. So if you have any questions about McConaughey, Lake Ogallala, or anything out there, feel free to call us directly here at the district office in North Platte, or periodically we'll have staff out there in Daryl's old office too that you can swing by and see if you catch us in the office someday. So we'll make sure McConaughey is well covered. It's just going to be a little bit different than what we've seen over the years. So with those changes, we have 4 full-time fish management staff based out of our North Platte office here. And then we do also have 2 hatcheries within the district. We have the North Platte State Fish Hatchery where 5 full-time employees work. And then we have the Rock Creek State Fish Hatchery down just north of Parks, where there's 3 full-time employees. So we're well represented within the fisheries division in the Southwest District. We do have several research partnerships that help us get our jobs done as well. We're really fortunate to have the relationships with both UNK and UNL. Currently, we have 2 graduate students working out at Lake Ogallala looking at the trout and some water quality things and vegetation. We have 1 student that's just finishing up at McConaughey. He's been doing some smallmouth and walleye stocking evaluations for us. And then 1 that just started at Medicine Creek and a statewide largemouth bass project that includes red willow in Medicine Creek. And then UNL has a graduate student looking at fishing guides. His project is more of just a fact-finding project, just trying to gather some information on how many guides we have operating and what type of anglers are utilizing their services to see if maybe there's a demographic of people that we maybe underrepresent and we could serve better. And then we also have a UNL creel project going on out at Lake Ogallala. We're doing a 12-month creel looking at Lake Ogallala itself and the river and canal below just to see how the fishing is responding after the renovation. Within our district, we don't have nearly the water bodies that a lot of the other districts do. We have 38 lakes and reservoirs that we manage, but what we lack in total water bodies, we make up with the surface acres with the size of our irrigation reservoirs. So with those 8 irrigation reservoirs, there's a lot of time spent with multiple survey opportunities at those just to try to keep a good handle on what those populations are doing. And we also have 18 I-80 lakes that provide a plethora of opportunities all the way from Chapel to Gothenburg. And then, of course, we have hundreds of miles of canals with both the Platte and the Republican drainages coming through our district. And then the canals obviously can be really excellent fishing this time of year for sauger and walleye and other species. So a big part of our job as fish managers is population assessment. So we'll run spring trap nets, do electrofishing at various times of year, and run gill nets in the fall. These population assessments is really where we start when it comes to making decisions. So we want to go out and try to find healthy populations. If for some reason we don't encounter the population we were hoping, we have a management toolbox that we can dip into that's really a 3-pronged approach. So we have the option to change regulations if we think we need to. We can try to improve habitat, or a big part of what we do is stocking fish. And we make these decisions. We don't make them lightly. So we make them based off of data, but we also take a lot of input. That's why meetings like what we have going on tonight, where we open up the opportunity for questions from you folks, why the Ask a Biologist programs are important, because we want input from our anglers to see if what we're seeing in the data matches what you're seeing when you're out there fishing these water bodies. And then together, we can try to make these as best as possible. I like to say that we're all, it looks different. It looks like tonight that I'm sitting on this side of the computer and you're on that side, but I like to think that we're all sitting on the same side, where our goal is the same as your goal, where we want these fisheries to be as good as they possibly can be, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. So with the regulation changes, new for 2026, the regulation change that will impact anglers in the Southwest District that I wanted to highlight, the Frenchman Wildlife Management Area, we added to the no live bait fish restriction. For those that don't remember, we renovated that in 2024, predominantly because of gizzard shad. So we put this no live bait fish restriction on there to hopefully keep those shad out of there as long as possible. We went down and evaluated it early in 2025, and it looks like it was a successful renovation. And within a year or two, all 3 are going to be excellent fisheries. So we want to make sure and keep them as good as possible for as long as possible. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about stocking. I think in 2025, we stocked just close to 65 million fish statewide, which was a huge effort. The Southwest District received just under 30 million of those fish. So a big chunk of the stocking that happens in the state happens in the Southwest District. With the size of our irrigation reservoirs, we just need a lot of fish to meet the demands of what those reservoirs need. And McConaughey, of course, is a big part of that, where 21.6 million fish went in there last year. Our request for 2026, we're going to have 28.3 million fish stocked in Southwest District, and 21 million of those are going to Lake McConaughey again. It's really important that we spend a lot of time helping our hatcheries, and we have excellent hatchery staff that are making these things happen. I mean, this is a big strain on them, and we'll do everything we can, anywhere from assisting with brood, hauling fish, or in this photo here, we're boat stocking fish down at Swanson. We work really hand in hand with that staff, and really fortunate to have them on our side. And with that too, we're very fortunate that we have administration and commissioners that are on board with investing in our hatcheries. So aging hatchery infrastructure is a major issue, not only within Nebraska, but across the United States. A lot of our hatcheries across the United States were developed 80 to 100 years ago. They're all aging, and they're expensive. It's expensive to do projects at these to update this infrastructure. So the fact that we have all the people on board to do this is really going to make a difference, not only for us as fish managers, but for our anglers and the water bodies within our state. I highlighted last year the picture on the left. We did some pond liners at the North Platte Hatchery, and then on the right side here, they've broken ground on a new RAS building at the Valentine State Fish Hatchery. That RAS building, which RAS stands for Recirculating Aquaculture System, is going to really cut down on water usage. So a big benefit to both of these projects is it's really going to help with water usage. We're just as concerned with water usage as everybody else is. So make sure that, thank you to everybody that's contributed, donated to these projects. And it's going to really benefit our anglers and our fisheries. Moving on to a little bit different topic, I wanted to give some Lake McConaughey updates. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. I want to talk about the dam repair project, low water access that we're looking at, and then give another walleye update. So just real quick on the dam, for those that don't remember, we had a high wind event in 2021, I believe, where we had sustained like 70-mile-an-hour winds for like 10 days in a row, beating down the into the dam. And as you can see in this photo here, there was some washing that occurred on the surface of the dam. So CNPPID, Central Nebraska Public Power and Irrigation District, they went out and evaluated it, and they're looking at things. They're going to have to do some things to fix the dam. Right now, what we've been updated recently, construction is going to begin in 2029 at the earliest. They still are working through what their repair plan is going to be. They're working with engineers and design firms and doing some studies to try to figure out what makes the most sense and what's going to be the most cost effective. I know I've heard numbers upwards and around $250 million to repair the dam. And then I did also want to dispel any rumors that might have been circulating out there. The low lake levels that are at McConaughey right now are because of lack of snowfall or snowpack and rainfall. It's not because of any dam safety issues. Central has stated multiple times that if there was any concern for the safety of the dam, they would drain the lake and not risk any downstream damage or loss of life. So the dam is safe. We're just, unfortunately, water levels are where they are right now because we're not getting the rain that we need. And those water levels are going to continue to be a concern out of McConaughey. The last update that I got, it sounds like we have a near record low snowpack in the North Platte and South Platte basins. For those unfamiliar with that system, we have 3 reservoirs on the North Platte River in Wyoming that are above McConaughey that get that snowpack before McConaughey does. So we need 2 good years in a row before McConaughey sees the benefit of snowpack. With a near record low snowpack and a McConaughey size amount of acre feet in those 3 reservoirs right now that needs to be filled, it's going to be at least 3 years, because this year is not going to be the first year of 2 good years in a row before we see much inflow that's going to really start bringing the lake back up. So with that in mind, we are exploring what we can do for a low water ramp. We're in the process of going through the paperwork to hire a consultant to identify where we're going to do that ramp. We are targeting the north shoreline, preferably near existing infrastructure. It sounds like we're kind of targeting around the beach area 12 location. And we're going to come in, Game and Parks is going to pay for it. We're still working through how that's going to look, but we're going to put in a low water ramp that'll get people on the water. And we're going to work to time this so it's done ahead of the dam repair, just so we can open up that access as soon as possible. But if you were on the call last night with the statewide meeting, these projects take a little bit of time. So we're working through that, doing the best we can, just trying to be as responsible with the funding and how we're doing things as we can be. And then finally, I wanted to give you a Lake McConaughey walleye update. So back in 2020, we started to have some concerns with the walleye population in McConaughey, where we had a heavily skewed older population of fish over 20 inches. We knew that, and we just weren't really seeing the recruitment coming behind them that we were hoping for. And we knew eventually those older fish were going to start to age out or get caught out. And so we really needed to address that lack of recruitment that we saw. So this all working with some angler groups and some staff, we came up with a new stocking strategy that began in 2022, where we added 3 developmental stages. So previous to 2022, we were stocking fingerlings annually out of McConaughey. When we switched, we now stock fry at 3 to 5 days old, fingerlings, which are inch to inch and a half. They're usually in the hatchery for about 40 to 45 days. And then the fingerling pluses, which we hold for a couple weeks, so they're about inch and a half to 2 inches, get stocked now. So since 2022, we've put just over 92 million walleyes into Lake McConaughey. So this has been a very big effort by our hatchery staff and by managers, making sure we get the brood and then getting those fish in the water. And we were able to utilize, while we're doing this project, one of our research partnerships with UNK to look at how these stockings are working. So we've been fry marking the fry, we've been fingerling marking the fingerlings, and then the fingerling pluses we're doing a double mark where we do a fry mark and then mark them as a fingerling as well. So we have 2 marks on there. You can see those OTC marks highlighted there on their otoliths. And what we've seen, so this graph here shows 2015 to 2018, we were evaluating natural recruitment. So we know how important stocking is at McConaughey based off of this data. From 2015 to 2018, we saw anywhere from 92 to 98% of the fish at fall age 0 walleye at fall age 0 were stocked fish. So it's a heavily stocked population. So we know we have to stock if we're going to have a walleye population out there. So in 2022, we went to this fry fingerling stocking. 2022, 2023, we had good contribution from fry fingerlings, and we also saw some increased natural recruitment as well. And then in 24 and 25, we saw a drop in the fry contribution and the natural recruitment. And we actually made some changes between 23 and 24. The first 2 years, we boat stocked all 20 million plus fry in the lake, which was a big logistical challenge to get that many fish in the water safely and where they needed to be. So in 24 and 25, we made the decision to try stocking those fish in the North Platte River immediately above the reservoir, with the idea that these fish potentially, they might not show up at age 0, but potentially they could show up at age 1 or 2. They might be a delayed effect to get them down into the reservoir. What we're kind of seeing with some of our research through UNK, a lot of those ratios aren't changing at age 1 and 2. So if they don't show up at age 0, they're not showing up at age 1 or 2. So we made the decision 2026, we're going to go back to boat stock in the fry just to make sure that we get them in the best places that we think they can be and get the most out of those stockings. So how's that translated to our population? Just as we expected, some of those older fish are starting to thin down a little bit. We still have that trophy potential and fish over that 22 to 28 inch range. I mean, there's still trophy fish in McConaughey, but what's really encouraging is we have this, a good portion of the population between 15 to 20 inches, and then quite a few fish even below 15 inches coming through. So we're seeing more consistent recruitment, which is encouraging for the long-term health of that population. Now, how is that translated to our fall gillnet catch? We're kind of right where we've been. We haven't really seen a big jump. We had a bigger jump in 24, and then we dipped back down in 25. We did make some changes in the last 3 or 4 years where we're running twice as many. We're running 8 gillnets now as opposed to 4, just to have a better idea of what's happening across the reservoir. That could impact what our catch looks like going forward compared to historical trends. But we think it's the right decision just to have a better handle on what's going on within that population at McConaughey. And while this project was going on and we were marking all the fish going into McConaughey, it gave us the opportunity to evaluate some age 0 walleye movement downstream of McConaughey. So in 23, 24, and 2025, we collected fall age 0 walleye at Sutherland and Lake Maloney and look for the fry, fingerling, and double marks that we were putting into McConaughey. So none of the fish that were stocked in Sutherland and Maloney were marked. And we actually, in those 3 years of evaluation, we didn't find a single age 0 walleye that came from McConaughey, which was surprising to all of us. We were expecting to see a few of them, but we didn't see a single one. So maybe the fish aren't coming out of McConaughey quite like we thought they were, at least not down to where they're at Sutherland and Maloney. So we had already kind of talked about adding, if we're not seeing the fish come out of McConaughey, maybe if we started stocking walleyes into Lake Ogallala, we could provide a different predator opportunity in Lake Ogallala to help keep some of the rough fish, white suckers, and alewife numbers down post-renovation. And it's going to provide us the opportunity that we're going to mark all these fingerlings with OTC at Lake Ogallala in 2026, and we're going to do further movement evaluations where we're going to collect at Maloney and Sutherland again. And then in after a couple years of this, we'll go to marking the fish in Sutherland, and we're just really trying to figure out how the walleyes are moving within that system and where they're coming from, and see if there's a way that we could capture or be more efficient with how we're doing our stockings within that. Now, in order for us to do this, that means we're not going to be able to mark any of the walleyes that are in Lake McConaughey over the next several years. So you won't see an OTC update on McConaughey next year. But once we finish up with this movement study, we'll go back to marking fish in McConaughey, and try to keep track of our natural recruitment at least. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jared Lawrenson, and he can talk to you a little bit about some of the projects that we have going on in the district.
Okay. Well, I'm Jared Lawrenson, stationed here in North Platte. We're going to cover a lot of topics in a short amount of time, so please give me or one of the other guys a phone call or an email after this meeting if you need to. Um, in, in the recent past, we've finished some projects, including the Inlet Angler Access Project at Maloney, Swanson's Rock Shoals, Hayes Center's boat ramp, and Frenchman's Fishery. We're not going to talk about those because we've talked about them in the past, but they are fairly recent. Um, we've got 6 projects that uh, we feel like are pretty pertinent to talk about right now, so we're going to touch on those real quick. The first one we just learned about here in the last couple days. A new dock for Sutherland Reservoir at Hershey Beach just got delivered, um, and that was funded through a Sportfish and the Aquatic Habitat Fund. It cost about 24 grand, and hopefully it'll get installed here shortly. We're already having some difficulty with it, but um, it'll be there shortly. So moving on to the other upcoming project, and uh, it's one that we've talked about before, and it's really a miracle that it's happening. This is at Swanson Reservoir down by Trenton. Swanson is a 3,000 acre reservoir, but we're going to get a new boat ramp or boat ramp and boat dock at this site. Um, we've had many budgetary challenges with this, and we're partnering with the Bureau of Reclamation. And as you guys know, the federal government had quite a bit of uproar the last couple of years. And at one point, we had um, funding allocated to do this project, and then it was taken away. And due to a couple of senators really pushing the issue, um, we got that money back, that authority to spend it back. And so we expect that project to happen yet this fall, um, this coming fall, I should say. And how we're going to make it better is we will address the current lack of slope at this boat ramp. So with the new ramp, we'll have an expected 10 to 14% grade. Um, are you guys seeing the slides move at all?
No, I think Logan, I don't know, Logan, if you could move that forward, advance the slide.
There we go. That's the boat ramp I was talking about.
Did
Um,
you take control of the screen, Jared?
I
I'll just
did.
click the button up there.
It still shows on my end, Jared, that you need to take control of it.
Click the 3 dots, and it says request remote control. Click that.
Huh. Okay. I don't have that option. I got
Just,
give up remote
Jet,
control.
We can move forward.
Logan, why don't,
Just tell me. Yeah, tell me when
Okay.
you need to move forward.
Well, yeah, go ahead and move forward. Thank you. Now, Medicine Creek is another project that we've recently finished just this last fall. Medicine Creek Reservoir is 1,650 acres, if I remember correctly, down by Cambridge, Nebraska. With this project, we got 42 rock shoals put in place, and these shoals are by trails 6, 7, and 12, if you're familiar with this site. And they're in groups of 6 or 12. And each one of these rock shoals is 10 foot long by 20 foot wide. And they're about 3 foot tall. Now, they were put in spots that will have 8 feet of water when the reservoir is full, and Medicine Creek Reservoir fills annually. These rock shoals will be marked with buoys, um, but if you're interested in their exact locations, please access this specific survey summary that's posted online. Okay, go ahead and move on. Now, in a lot of cases, when I'm involved, this is an ongoing project that happens every year, and 2026 is no different. But when I'm involved, most of the time it's a spot treatment. We are just trying to maintain some level of fishability. Um, so we're not out there to kill the entire lake, kill all the vegetation at once, just in one local spot. And in many cases, we're treating water milfoil. In other cases, we're treating muskgrass. Go ahead and click. Um, in some cases, we're treating emergent vegetation. That might be some invasive cattail. In other cases, it's Phragmites. So we have several places we'll do that here in 2026. In 2025, we got involved, as Brad talked about earlier, a similar project. It was funded through NET, the Nebraska Environmental Trust. We cleared cedars and Russian olives at 3 interstate lakes near North Platte, including Fremont Slough, Pawnee Slough, and West Maxwell. Now, this was done primarily to increase angler access from the shoreline, but also to definitely increase visibility at these areas. A portion of trees at each site were held back for us to sink as aquatic habitat and structure for anglers. And hopefully these structures will congregate some game species that anglers can target. And if you're interested in the exact locations, please check out this survey summary that's online. Okay, go ahead. Another project that I wanted to talk about is happening at Frenchman WMA. This is down by Palisade. There's 3 pits, and they surface acres total 20 acres between the 3. We're going to have an angler access project upcoming yet this spring, where concrete boat ramps will be built at each one of these pits and bank angler access at each pit. The ADA approved site will be at Pond 1. This is the largest and most easiest to get to. There'll also be bank access sites at these other 2, but they will be a little bit different. Okay, so last but not least, I wanted to mention Rock Creek. This is a lake down by Binkelman, approximately 50 acres. And in the next year or 2, we anticipate a project happening within the sediment basin. And the goal is to make it easier and more efficient for us to clean it out, for a contractor to clean it out, I should say. And as many of you know, the rate of sedimentation is only increasing. So this is an important project. So anyhow, thanks for listening to me ramble on. Please give me a call with any questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Logan, who's going to tell you about some data that we've seen recently.
Perfect. Thanks, Jared. Like I said, my name's Logan Dietrich. I'm going to be covering some of our 2026 fishing forecast highlights. Some of the pictures that you see on the screen there were from our 2025 surveys on various different species. We encountered a lot of nice quality fish here in the Southwest, and should be some good fishing opportunities here in 2026 for folks. Jumping in to walleye and saugeye here, our top 3 surveys for walleye were the 3 Platte Valley lakes of Sutherland, Maloney, and McConaughey. Sutherland and Maloney had higher catches than McConaughey, but there's some bigger fish in the McConaughey system. So for folks looking to target some of those bigger fish, that's where I'd go. Numbers wise, Sutherland and Maloney look good. However, don't overlook Enders Reservoir as well. Enders has a pretty good walleye population down there with some fish over 20 inches as well. Moving on to sawguys, Medicine Creek really came on here the last couple of years since we started stocking sawguys down there. Got a lot of nice fish in that system, a lot of them that are the harvestable size of 15 inches or greater. And we started stocking sawguys at Swanson in 2024. And that year class really showed up well here this past year in our gill nets. Most of those fish, when we handled them, were in that 13 to 14 inch range. So by this season, they should be hitting that 15-inch range to where folks can target and harvest some of those. So a lot of good opportunities there for both species. And anglers looking to target sauger should focus on Jeffrey Reservoir and the Tri-County Canal. Those are our best systems and only systems in the Southwest that have sauger. Moving on to white bass and wiper, two of the three top white bass and wiper surveys were conducted in 2025 from the Southwest District. So have some pretty good opportunities there. Enders and red willow we're at the top of the list for white bass. Pretty good numbers there and a good size structure as well. Some nice fish in that 12 to 15 inch range. And Sutherland's a close third there as well. But moving on to wipers, Red Willow and Swanson were our two best surveys last year. Swanson still is doing really well from that 2018 year class that was stocked. We've got a lot of bigger fish in that system, but we got a lot of fish in general. So folks looking to target trophy wipers, it's a really good place to target this year, and I strongly encourage you to get down there. Angling reports from last year were good, and people were catching them. Moving on to crappies, red willow continues to be at the top of the list for us and throughout the state for crappie surveys. It was again in 2025. It was the second highest crappie catch in the state, and we had just under 180 crappie per net. A lot of nice fish in that survey as well. Most of them were in that 9 to 10 inch range, but you got some trophy potential over 10 inches as well. Enders is coming on pretty well too. We had a stocking there in 2024 that's shown up really well. Most of those fish are in the 8-inch range last year when we caught them. So by this year, they should be in that 9 to 10 inch range and should be some pretty good fish down there. And then Hayes Center's got a really good size structure as well. Some nicer fish in that system for folks looking to target those. And finally, we'll end off here with some of the catfish species. For channel catfish, Sutherland continues to be at the high end for catch throughout the state each year. It's predominantly from those smaller fish that are in the system. It's got really good natural recruitment in there, but there's a lot of good harvestable size fish in that system. So for folks looking to target channel catfish, that's a really good opportunity there. And anybody that's looking for more trophy size, red willow's a really good trophy fishery and has been for several years. And Wellfleet's got some really nice fish in there as well. And finally, our blue catfish, we got two reservoirs that we manage for trophy blue cat fishery here in the Southwest, those being Medicine Creek and Swanson. We've got a lot of fish in both systems right now. We switched to a summer electrofishing survey to get our hands on them here. The last couple of years, we've done really well. In 2025, we kind of blew it out of the water with both surveys. We did really, really well on a lot of different sizes of those fish, but a lot of trophy fish in the system. So for anybody looking for a unique opportunity, that would be the place to go. Then to kind of end it off here, just want to kind of put a quick plug in for the aquatic invasive species. If you tuned into the previous meeting, Brad Eifert with the South Central District, he had talked about some of the silver carp movement in the North Platte River. We have detected silver carp up to the North Platte diversion here out by the airport. We want to make sure that those fish aren't being moved around. So we definitely ask anglers when they're out there to not move any fish around. If you're collecting bait, make sure you identify what species you're collecting as well. So if you have any questions or comments regarding aquatic invasive species, there's two ways to report it. Both of them are listed on the screen there. So please use those email or the phone number to get in touch with somebody, and we'll get that taken care of. So with that, I will turn it back over to Sean, and we'll begin our question session.
I just wanted to point out this slide here real quick before we start jumping into these questions. This is all of our direct phone numbers here in the district office in North Platte. feel free to write those down, write down our email addresses. We want to hear from you, the angler, and take comments from you because it's really vital to what we do to hear what you guys are seeing or having questions on. So, with that, I'll go ahead and turn over to Jordan Cott, who will moderate our question session here, and we can start answering some of those for you.
Thank you guys. Great job. Great information there. And as Sean said, yeah, utilize that chat box and ask away here, and we'll get to your questions as they come up. First question: has Jeffrey Reservoir ever been dredged out?
I'll let Jared answer that question. He knows Jeffrey a little better than I do.
Well, yes. It wasn't dredged out completely by any means, but in 2018 there was a channel dredged. Um, I would use extreme caution still. There's that big mud flat, and the channel was, I got a really nice picture of it, but I can't find it really fast. It was so long ago already. But that channel that was dredged gets you around that big mud flat. And if a guy can find it and not run into the mud flat, it's narrow. It was narrow when it was built, 10 years ago. So it's still touchy.
Sure. Using caution seems like the best advice there, as you mentioned. Few Lake McConaughey questions. First one here is when was the last time we used Lake McConaughey for egg collections for our hatchery system?
So we were talking about that, trying to narrow that down. I believe it was 2020 during COVID. So we were restricted on how many people we could send out during that time. So we did it out at McConaughey all in one day, basically for all the walleye stocking that year. A couple of years ago, we used it for males, but in recent times, we've been utilizing we have a building that was built up at Merritt Reservoir, and we're able to catch everything that we need up there and be able to work with hatchery staff inside in a more controlled environment. So we've been utilizing the Merritt population the last few years and haven't had the need to go to McConaughey, but we always have that as a backup if we need it.
And also kind of dealing with the spawning walleye. Just talk about potential impacts that anglers have. I know the fish in the walleye spawn at McConaughey is a real popular event out there. Potential impacts that our anglers are having, and specifically to those large females. I know we've done some research on that. Just what information do we have that can be passed along to our audience tonight?
Yeah, we did a nighttime creel out there a few years ago to answer that exact question on what kind of impact we might be seeing on that population of fish during the spawn. And it wasn't nearly as high as what we were expecting or led to believe, I guess. Most of the anglers that are fishing on the dam during the walleye spawn at McConaughey are not harvesting fish anyway. Most of those folks are just out there for the opportunity to catch a big fish. McConaughey is a difficult place to shore fish, and with the dam opportunity in the spring, a lot of people, that's the only time if they don't have a boat that they get to fish for walleyes at McConaughey. So we're in the opportunity business, so we're not looking at closing it because, is it possible that people are out there snagging and taking fish illegally? Yes, but we do have law enforcement on site, and they are writing citations when they catch those folks doing those things. And we hear about them doing that when that opportunity arises. So we don't want to limit opportunity out there. We don't think it's having as much of an impact on the fishery. There's other things that you could point to that might be having an impact, but I don't think that's one of them necessarily. It's kind of a cumulative thing out there that could be having impacts, but it wouldn't be just that specific, and that's not something we're looking at limiting anytime soon.
Thanks. Kind of sticking with McConaughey, you mentioned some projects. Is there a project happening over in Martin Bay right now?
Not that I'm aware of. I think I seen that they had some sand moved around the last time I was out there. I don't know if that was just sand that came off the ramp. That would be probably a better question for parks. Um, Obviously, Martin Bay is high and dry right now, but I think that was just an opportunity to move some sand away from the boat ramp there at the low water ramp. Would be my guess anyway. Nothing that I'm aware of though.
Sure. And then with the alewife population in McConaughey, could any other predators that you think of be stocked to utilize that population of alewife? And do you think there's any other forage fish that would be a benefit in McConaughey? Kind of both sides of the spectrum there.
So both sides of the spectrum, with the amount of forage that we already have in McConaughey, there's not really a need for another species of forage fish. So we have gizzard shad and alewife, and of course we know how abundant the alewife are. And actually, when alewife were introduced, alewife were the last of like 5 different species that were introduced back in the 80s. We tried emerald shiners, we tried threadfin shad, a couple other species in there, and didn't have much success with those. Alewife were the ones that took, and that's what we have now. As far as other predators go, I would say it's possible that we could look at putting different predators in there. We've had some discussions, but nothing that's, I guess, impending anytime soon as far as what predators. But with the amount of forage out there, there's definitely could be an opportunity to take advantage of that in the future for sure.
And this is kind of a general question. Just can you expand on largemouth and smallmouth bass opportunities in your area?
So we have good opportunities for both species, both in the reservoirs and I-80 lakes. If you want to target largemouth bass, just about any one of the I-80 lakes, if you look at, we have a survey summary that's available online from Chapel to Gothenburg that highlights all of the fisheries on the I-80 lakes. So those all have pretty good largemouth bass populations. Smallmouth, I will add to largemouth, some of our larger reservoirs, Swanson, Red Willow, Medicine Creek, can have pretty good largemouth bass populations at times as well. And then smallmouth bass fishing at McConaughey, Sutherland Reservoir, and Maloney can be excellent. McConaughey's a world-class smallmouth fishery out there right now. That's part of why we have this graduate student working, because we just have such an incredible smallmouth population there. And then we also have really excellent smallmouth opportunities within the canal system. So the Maloney Inlet Canal and the Sutherland Supply Canal can have some smallmouth, but between Maloney and Sutherland, there's excellent smallmouth fishing at times. Trying to think. And we do have East Sutherland I-80 Lake. We stock smallmouth in post renovation, and we sampled a few of those last year. And there's several fish between 15 and 20 inches in there already. If somebody's looking for a smaller lake opportunity to target those smallies.
Thank you. We did get a message from our deputy director, Jim Swinson. He mentioned there is a campground project starting over in Martin Bay, so that's likely what
Okay.
what that individual was referring to with the project starting over there. This just popped up. What's the largest red ear sunfish sampled out in your area? And just, I guess, speak to red ear sunfish availability out in the Southwest.
Logan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we got a few different opportunities here in Southwest. Kind of one of our main ones that we highlighted is Rock Creek. Rock Creek's got abundant numbers in there. This past year, we ran trap nets down there, and I think the top end fish that we were sampling they were getting close to that 10-inch mark. Weren't quite there, but they were pushing 9.5 inches. Lots of them. We were right at like 54 per net. So it was a really good survey down there. A couple other interstate lakes around here have them as well, but Rock Creek, if somebody's wanting to target them, especially the numbers of them, that definitely would be the place that I would choose to go to in 2026.
All right. We got one question about some liability on if you're fishing on the the dam at McConaughey and getting hurt. We'll have to do a little bit of research on that. We'll get back to you on a little bit once we get a little bit more information on that. Again, we're fisheries biologists. We're not exactly sure on how that where our property is and how those leases work. So we'll get some more information on that, and we'll get back to you on that. Um, just reading as these come in, dealing with Lake Ogallala and the river checks with the trout opportunities down there. Just speak to the fishing opportunities down there with the trout and any chance to make those trophy opportunities with the growth rates. I know you guys have been working with our rivers and streams crew, um, and kind of looking at growth rates and doing some tagging and kind of moderate or monitoring fish movement down there. Kind of speak on that.
Yeah. So I would say that we don't have to make them a trophy uh, fishery because they already are. We're already seeing with our creel that's going on at Lake Ogallala and with our sampling, we have a lot of rainbow and cutbow trout over 20 inches in that system, both in the lake and in the canal at times, and then in the river below in the rockweir pools. We were just out there, was it last week, and we sampled several fish that were up over 20 inches in the rockweirs just last week, and then we are stocking 32,000 12-inch trout in there annually right now, 16,000 in the spring and 16,000 in the fall. Um, Pretty big effort by the hatcheries to grow those fish all the way to 12 inches. So those fish are going in already large enough that they can eat some of the young of the year alewife, and they've been growing really well. We're actually seeing them benefit on a lot of the snails that are growing on the vegetation out there. Some of the food habit stuff we're seeing with some of the UNK research, they're eating quite a few snails and really growing. Um, let's see here. What else was in there? As far as other species, I can answer that one too. Um, at Lake Ogallala, right now it's just the two that we're going to be doing, the rainbow trout and cutbow trout. A few years ago, we were doing tiger trout as well, but we had some issues within the hatcheries of growing tiger trout. They had a tendency to get sick, and when they got sick, they wouldn't grow. So trying to get them to the size they needed before we stocked them was really challenging. One benefit that we've really seen with these cutbows is they stay healthy and they grow really well in the hatcheries, which helps us get them to our target goals and get them out the door like they need to and be out on the landscape to be utilized.
Sure. Um, this question is dealing specifically with Lake McConaughey, but just in general as well. To kind of talk about how all fishing tournaments that charge a registration fee or have um a prize associated with them need to be registered with us. Can you just kind of talk about how that process works, how we possibly could deny somebody a tournament on a given date, that sort of thing, to try to limit how much activity is going on at a water body, to try to reduce the congestion, that sort of thing at certain areas, certain times of the year.
Yeah. So we take applications for those in our Lincoln office, and then from there they work through us, the district staff, and our park staff at the specific locations that these applications come in on. And we do try to limit the number of tournaments that happen on a given weekend when we can. A lot of times it's a matter of trying to figure out how many people are going to be at their tournament if they can both be there. You know, like the Shut Up and Fish is a pretty common one, and then some of these other ones. Um, there is some overlap. We do take a lot of applications, so it's not always feasible to prevent having multiple tournaments on the same weekend, unfortunately. But it is something that we are mindful of, especially now with the low water issues and where there's only so many access points. If we have multiple tournaments trying to set up at the same boat ramp to do their weigh-ins, it can be challenging. Which a big benefit is a lot of these new tournaments are doing catch, weigh, and release on the boats, and then they don't have to do an actual weigh-in on the shoreline, which helps limit some of that congestion as well.
And Sean, maybe I just chime in just a little bit on that with Lake McConaughey specifically here and some of that. You know, Sean mentioned it on the low water. There's only so much even at high water smallmouth bass habitat at McConaughey, and so we are aware of the issues out there on some of those tournaments, and we're looking into it because we understand too that you get enough people out there, and if you want to target smallmouth bass on a weekend and there's a couple tournaments going on, it could have some impacts. And so we are aware of it. We're looking into it, and we try to limit that as much as we possibly can. So good question.
And with that, that's all the questions I have right now. We do have a little bit more time, but unless anybody else chimes in the chat, I will turn it back over to Sean for any closing comments that you and your crew have.
Well, I just wanted to again thank everybody for attending tonight. Our peak number of attendees was 70. So we had a really good turnout. I really appreciate everybody taking the time this evening. And please reach out to us, show up to that event at Carporama this summer and talk to us. If you see us at a boat ramp and have questions or want to know what we're doing, stop by and talk to us. We're happy to answer any questions. We want you to know what's going on. We're all, like I said, we're all on the same side of this. We all want good fisheries. So thank you everybody for coming. And I guess I look forward to hearing from you in the public too.
I think Jordan, maybe we just answer this last. There was just another question come in there, Sean, and something maybe you want to take a stab at is, what can be done to require improved DO in Lake Ogallala. And I know I can speak a little bit on that too, but get your perspective, Sean, and we just will get to the question while we got it. We got some time here.
Yeah, that one's a challenging one. Obviously, there's some limitations on, what we can do as fish managers. We're in charge of the fishery. We don't have much say over what the water is out there. With the hydro and everything else that's operating out there, unfortunately, we have some oxygen issues going on there. We know that we're looking at different opportunities to try to improve or keep the fishery better. That's part of why we have the research going on, utilizing the UNK staff out there to look at alternative opportunities on what we can do to keep that fishery as good as possible for as long as possible. So we're exploring some exclosures to keep carp away from some of the vegetation, just to keep that vegetation established. If we keep better vegetation, that provides a little bit more opportunity for some oxygen production as well. And then, of course, working with Central and MPPD on things into the future on what we can potentially do. Definitely, we would like to find a long-term solution that would solve some of the dissolved oxygen issues out there, but just the feasibility of that, we're going to continue to look for options. But until we can come up with a good one, we're going to continue looking. So.
Sounds good. Well, great job, Sean and staff, and just kind of echoing, what Sean said. Really appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to sit in and listen. And like Sean said, we're more than willing to sit and listen to people. If you got questions, you got comments, you got complaints, doesn't matter. Get a hold of the district staff, phone number, emails, all right there. Get a hold of them, get your questions answered, and hope everybody has a good, productive year on the lakes down in the Southwest region and statewide.